You know, when we think about the Cold War, we have this image of the world balanced on a razor's edge, right? On the brink of nuclear annihilation. And we kind of just assume we made it through because of brilliant leaders and flawless high-tech systems. But what if that's not the whole story? What if our survival was just a happy accident? Yeah. Let's dive into this, because the real story is so much more terrifying and, honestly, just plain weird.
This quote right here, this is pretty much the heart of what we're talking about today. It sounds completely ridiculous, almost like a joke, but it points to this really shocking truth about how ridiculously close we came to the end, and the bizarre, unpredictable things that somehow, miraculously, pulled us back.
And yeah, that's exactly the question you should be asking. A bear? Really? But the answer, well, the answer reveals just how fragile and, frankly, how illogical our so-called peace really was. It makes you face this really uncomfortable idea that pure dumb luck has played a huge role in our survival.
So this really breaks it down, doesn't it? It's the gap between what we think happened and what actually happened. On the left, that's the story we like to tell ourselves, you know? A world run by flawless systems, brilliant strategies, perfect protocols. But on the right, that's the messy reality we're digging into. A world saved by random chance, by someone's gut feeling, and by mistakes that, thank God, just happened to go the right way.
All right, so let's get right to it. Let's start with our most unlikely hero of all. And to really get how a bear, yes, a bear, nearly kicked off World War III, we need to go back in time to one of the absolute most tense moments in all of human history.
So, picture this. The date here is so important. The US and the Soviet Union are staring each other down over missiles in Cuba. We're talking hair trigger alert. Every single soldier, every pilot is just waiting for the signal. And right then, at that exact moment, an alarm goes off at an American airbase. The signal? A possible Soviet saboteur on site.
And this is just a perfect, terrifying example of how fast things could go wrong. So it starts with an intruder, right? Something's climbing the fence, it triggers an alarm. Simple enough. But here's the kicker. A faulty wire triggers the wrong alarm. Not the, hey, someone's on the fence alarm, but the incoming air attack alarm. Instantly, pilots are scrambling to their jets, which are armed with nuclear weapons, ready to take off. I mean, they're on the runway. At the very last second, a jeep literally races out to physically block the lead plane. And the big, scary Soviet saboteur? It was a black bear. Just an animal out for a stroll that accidentally kicked off a chain reaction that brought us inches from all-out nuclear war.
Okay, so a system failing is one thing, and that's terrifying enough. But what happens when the system works exactly as it's supposed to, and that's actually the bigger problem? Let's look at that now, because this is where we see the insane amount of pressure put on just one person. So get this. At pretty much the exact same time that Bear was climbing a fence in Minnesota, there's a Soviet submarine deep in the Atlantic. It's being hunted by the US Navy, it's totally cut off from Moscow, and the commanders on board are convinced war has already broken out. So what do? 2 of the 3 senior officers vote to launch their nuclear torpedo. But it took just one man, Vasily Arkhipov, to say no, to refuse, and that single vote prevented a launch that would have, without a doubt, started World War III right then and there.
Now, for this next story to make sense, you got to understand this absolutely terrifying military idea called launch on warning. It's exactly what it sounds like. You don't wait to see if the bombs actually land. The very second your computers say missiles are coming, you launch everything you've got. No time to double check, no time for committee meeting. It's all about speed. But you can see the problem, right? It's just begging for a catastrophic mistake.
Okay, let's jump forward about 20 years to 1983. The tech is way better, the systems are supposedly more advanced, but the stakes, they're just as high as ever. And this guy, Stanislav Petrov, he's the man on duty. He's in a secret command center just outside Moscow, and his job is brutally simple. If those alarms go off, his one and only job is to report it up the chain. And that's it. The wheels of retaliation start turning.
And then it happens. The absolute unthinkable. Sirens are blaring. The screen is just flashing this one giant word, launch. The computer is saying with the highest possible confidence that 5 American nuclear missiles are on their way. Protocol is crystal clear. Report it now. But Petrov, he hesitated. He just stood there. And you gotta think, 5 missiles? Who starts a nuclear war with just 5 missiles? It just didn't add up. His gut, his intuition was screaming at him that this had to be a mistake.
So he made a choice. He picked up that phone and, going against every single rule in the book, he reported a system malfunction. Think about that. He was literally betting the entire world on a hunch, and he was right. Turns out the sun reflecting off some clouds had tricked the satellites. That's it. Stanislav Petrov's gut feeling broke the chain of automatic annihilation and, well, saved the world.
And you won't believe this, but just a few weeks after Petrov had his moment, the world stumbled right back to the edge. And this time, it wasn't a glitch, it wasn't a bear, it was because a war game, a simulation, felt a little too real.
So NATO did this exercise every year, right? It was called Able Archer, basically a test of their systems. But in '83, for some reason, they decided to make it hyper-realistic, like dangerously realistic. They used new, secret codes, they went radio silent, they even had high-level leaders like Margaret Thatcher actually participating. Now, put yourself in the Soviets' shoes. They're already paranoid after the whole Petrov thing. This did not look like a game to them. And things just spiraled out of control so fast. When NATO, as part of the game, simulated moving to DEFCON 1, that's the absolute final step before you push the button, the Soviets were convinced. They thought, this is it, this is a trick. The exercise is a cover for a real first strike. And so they started getting their own nukes ready for a preemptive attack. We were probably just hours away from the end of the world, and the only thing that saved us? The war game just ended. It finished on schedule, the attack never materialized, and everyone slowly backed away.
So let's just recap for a second. A bear, one guy's no vote, another guy's gut feeling, and a war game that thankfully just stopped. What in the world does this all tell us about the peace we've all been living in?
I mean, when you lay it all out like this, it's unbelievable, isn't it? The real heroes of the Cold War, the people who saved the world, they weren't always presidents and generals. They were the random, the unlikely, the people who dared to defy the system. They were the lucky glitches in the machine that stopped the whole thing from driving right off a cliff.
And really, that's what this all boils down to. These aren't just weird little stories from history class. They show a massive, fundamental flaw in our thinking. We built these incredible systems of total destruction, systems so complex and so automated that we forgot to leave room for basic common sense. And in the end, our best defense against ourselves was just pure, dumb luck.
And that leaves us with a pretty unsettling question, doesn't it? We look back at the last several decades and we call it peace. But maybe it was just a really, really long lucky streak. And learning about these close calls isn't about pointing fingers at the past. It's about asking a very serious question about today. If we only survived by accident, can we really count on being lucky forever?